What is going on YouTube and Facebook? This is your host, Marcus J, and this is another episode, the 8th episode of 717 Sports Chat Live. How's everybody doing tonight? Got a bevy of topics to talk about. Me and my buddy Francis are going to break this thing down. Some topics across a few sports, basketball, MMA, and boxing tonight. I mean, hit that like button, hit subscribe. What's going on, Francis? How you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing good. How you doing tonight?
I'm not doing too bad. Well, I'm lying. I'm beside myself after the atrocity that I watched last night that played out. But we're going to talk about that. You know that. That was sickening. Watching that entire game.
Is that who want to open up the night?
We're going to open up the first game of the day. We're going to talk about the Suns take game 1 versus the Clippers. Behind Devin Booker's 40-point triple-double. Mind you, there was only, 2 other Phoenix Suns in history, and that's Sir Charles Barkley and Steve Nash to record a 40-point triple-double in the history of Phoenix Suns playoff basketball. So, I mean, obviously he had a great game. He needed to have a great game because CP3's out, obviously, with the whole COVID protocol thing. But he looked good. They didn't – as a team, they didn't look like they missed a beat being off those days. They looked, pretty sharp. What do you take from this game?
Honestly, I think the same thing I said about the Clippers. The Clippers, you never can count them out because, I think
even without Kawhi, and who expected the Clippers to be there without Kawhi?
And that's what I'm saying. It's just like they just have a good bench, it shows that sometimes you just don't always need all them stars. And honestly, I mean, you're gonna see. I'm not saying that the Clippers are A+ team with all them players, but you gotta really look at what they're working with. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
They're working with off that bench is and that's just and that's even if you consider Paul George, of that caliber. You get what I'm saying? Because some nights you don't get that type of player from Paul George, and you really got to rely on Kawhi. But for right now, you see what he's doing, and that you see what it's kind of like Booker right now.
Playoff P. He labeled himself playoff P, and I have to give it to him, especially in those last 2 games against Utah. He definitely showed up as playoff P. And not to mention Terrence, man, that kid's pretty good. Yeah. He's a nice little hidden gem that they have in that bench, and they're definitely giving him more minutes. I would say the Clippers, you can't count them out. But what I want to touch on outside of obviously them losing game 1 is let's talk about if the Clippers. Okay, so they win without Kawhi the last 2 games against Utah, right? Let's say if they even take this series, 7 games, even in a losing effort, do you think this will be the last of we see Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers? Do you think this makes the Clippers decide, do we really need Kawhi? Especially with that injury. Now, from what I'm hearing, they're expecting him to be back next year, but they don't know when next year they're getting him back. And if I'm not mistaken, it's this upcoming season or the next year. It's a contract year coming up. So,
from what I heard, because they were talking about it a little bit, and I was gonna bring that up before you even brought it up. That he's due, I think, in the next couple 2 years for a contract reinstatement. I mean, like you said, if they get far into the playoffs, what do you do? Do you waste the money on Kawhi? And a lot of people are saying, okay, LeBron's out there searching for stars. So I mean, you don't really know.
No. I mean, I think that it's a possibility that especially if they win this Western Conference Finals and gets to the finals without Kawhi, I think it's a pretty interesting argument to make that they will say, you know what? We showed we don't really need you. And your history of injuries, kind of plagues us wanting to give you another big money deal. So I think it's possible, you know what I mean, that they could try to move on, especially if Paul George keeps playing the way he's been playing.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, he didn't, I want to say have his best of Suns, you know what I mean, but that will come over time.
I feel
like once he gets into a rhythm against it, once he knows how to play the Suns, he'll get better as the series goes on, and the series will get tougher for Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, the series is honestly, Phoenix is in the spot right now where they shouldn't even be.
They're honestly in the catbird seat. In all honesty, because to me, they right now, especially without Kawhi, to me they just have the better team in terms of chemistry. You know what I mean? This team has been playing with each other all year. Really, no injuries outside of CP3, but Cameron Payne is really good step in for CP3.
But
the guy can score.
Right now the Suns are looking good. Everyone, I'm saying the Suns are in a spot right now coming into this finals against the Lakers, and everyone thought, oh, they're not even going to get out of that round.
That's true.
And so the Suns right now are at a spot right now where they and I hate to quote a lot of people, but it's like they're revitalized at this point. You get what I'm saying? Came back from the dead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of
CP3 did that. That's what CP3 does. Everywhere he goes, he revives a team from the dead.
And I hate to say it, you have no one but to, put, and it's all because of Chris Paul, honestly, dude. And the way that team has really came together around him. I'm not saying it's all him, but they came around.
Well, you definitely see the maturity of Devin Booker since he's came in. Like, we've seen it a little bit last year with Book, where he started to come alive late in the season. But I feel like, Chris Paul being there, being that general, definitely has helped this kid grow in terms of maturation. And you see it now, especially like he's taking, like if he has to, he's taking over the game. You don't have to question that anymore. You know what I mean? You don't have to question that at all. That kid's going to take over the game. And I just feel like, especially this year, Chris Paul has definitely elevated his game. Like, helped elevate this kid's game and push him over that next level. And let's talk about the 40-point triple-double. I mean, the kid was lights out, man.
Yep.
You couldn't stop him. And my thing is, he's not really known for his assists and his rebounding. So that just comes to show that the maturity and the understanding. Chris Paul's out we don't know if we're going to get him back at all this series. This is what I'm probably going to have to do almost every single game if we're going to have a shot. And the same kind of goes for the Clippers in their situation with Kawhi being out. Paul
George is really going to have to step up and be that guy too.
He's got to be playoff P. He has to be the Paul George that was Paul George in the last two games against Utah.
Yep.
And they do. I'm not counting the Clippers out, not even without Kawhi, because they proved that they can beat the best. They beat the best team in the West without Kawhi. 2 games. Yep. They did that 2 games. But man, I'm not going to leave out. That was a spectacular performance from Booker yesterday, man. I watched that before I watched the Sixers game. I watched a little bit of that, and it was really an outstanding performance.
I caught the third and the fourth half.
Yeah. That's basically what I did, but then I went back and looked at the first half or whatever. So then I allowed myself to catch the whole game.
This morning of when he was draining that, what was it, the 40-footer, that 3-point shot?
Yes, yeah, the 40, the long range. Yep. That's another thing too. He just his confidence just looks on a different level.
It's kind of like what you said. That's what happens when you put the right type of people around them young players. And, we can touch on this because I was going to touch on this with you. Anyway, what about the MVP, dog? The fucking rookie of the year, MVP? I mean, what do you really think? Do you think those guys were – honestly, I hate to say it, I'm going to give it to the Ball brother. I'm gonna give it to him because
he lit
it up.
They talk about
his highlights.
They talk about Anthony Edwards, and don't get me wrong, Anthony Edwards had a really good rookie season. But to me, Ball stood out as a better overall future player. He can do everything. The kid can shoot. He can rebound. He can assist. He can score from anywhere. Different